Bashir El-Rufai, this is the son of Nasir El-Rufai, is now suggesting that Tinubu should not conduct census at the federal level, that it should allow all states and local government to conduct the election so that true population numbers are reflected. Excuse me, Bashir El-Rufai. When your father, Nasir El-Rufai, was still the governor of Kaduna State, which happens to be under the administration of Buhari, Buhari allotted approximately over 220 billion naira to conduct census. That time, we saw how your father and so many northern politicians supported that agenda, that program. In fact, so many people were asking some questions that how would Buhari allocate over 200 billion naira just to conduct the national population count, which of course is the census, that is too much, that this is just another avenue for Buhari to launder money. What did we see? We saw how they did everything to just concoct words, play with words, and they defended that exercise. But at the end of the day, they never conducted it. But to some extent, about 30 billion or 40 billion was given out because they said they already bought some machines and the likes. Now, being that Tinubu is trying to reassure himself of the actual numbers of the Fulanis in the north, he wants to be sure that, is it true that the north have what we call this bulk vote? Most of the time, they'll tell you that your block vote should come from the KKK state, which is the Kaduna, Katsina, and Kano. That the three states collectively can give you like 2.5 million, 3 million and co. Now, Tinubu, he has seen that in the recent time, he has lost popularity. In fact, the Northerners are vowing and they are assuring Tinubu that they will break his back, that they will do everything to kick him out, and it will be called an OTP, which means one-time president. When Tinubu heard this, he took it upon himself to reform the census, and he has said, well, that is the case, I will go ahead and conduct a biometric census. In the past, we have seen how they tell you that in Kano State, they have 40 million people. They'll tell you that in Kaduna State, they have 10 million people. They can tell you that in Borno State, they have 15 million people, which means that they have more people living in Kano than in Lagos State. These were the results that they've always brought forward from the past. Because what they do is, when they are counting, they count their cows, they count their camels amongst, as part of the population. And you have to understand why these population numbers are very important. They have understood that when it comes to resource allocation, it sits on three tripods. You have the derivation. Secondly, you have the population. And then thirdly, you have the what? Equalization. Now, the population aspect of fact sharing is, the more your people are, the more your chances of getting money, even when you do not do anything. So let's say, for instance, now in Zamfara, the state governor is allowed to conduct its state election. They will come up with a population of almost 10 million. They might tell you where they have 10 million people living from Zamfara. But we all know that in Zamfara, the population there today shouldn't be more than the population we have in Bayelsa. Despite the large mass land in Zamfara, the population in Zamfara cannot be above 3 million. Because one, Zamfara has been under terrorist attack for the past 9 to 10 years, Zamfara has been besieged by the bandits. So you see people migrating down into the south. When you allow them to go and conduct the election, they'll tell you Zamfara has 10 million. They might tell you Kano has 29 million. They might tell you Kaduna has 15 million. And by the time you add up all the numbers of the people living in the north, you might see that, okay, the north now has about, let's say we have 220 million as a general population. The north will now only be taking about 70%, which is totally untrue. Tinubu has taken it upon himself that I will break these things, these schemes, this logic you guys use to always inflate your numbers, to cheat those in the south. They are now rattled. Bashir El-Rufai had to go to the social media and post it, just as I have it again on the screen, saying that, well, the point is we have to push for states conducting population count. Nobody has ever said that. It has never been heard of. It is like you saying that every oil and gas found in Rivers State should be owned and controlled by the Rivers State government, when we are fully aware that such things are just on the exclusive list. It is not on the concurrent or the residual list. Population census is on the exclusive list, so that there can be what we call objectivity. This is why the federal government made it so. And I concur with it. I concur with the fact that let us strictly have population census done by a federal government agency, period. And these guys will be audited along the line. States can decide to conduct their own census, but that will not be the data the federal government would adopt. If the states wants to be factual, yes, you can conduct your census. I mean, for you to have your own state database, why not? Why don't you go ahead? But the notion, the idea that the states will be the one that will conduct and then submit it to federal government, we are not fools. We are not fools. Otherwise, Bayelsa also will go and say, well, Bayelsa that we know that there has never been a time the Bayelsa population has ever crossed 4.5 million. All of a sudden, you see Bayelsa will come out and tell you that they have a population of 9.5 million. That's it. Everybody will just keep inflating. So you will now see what the Northerners will do. They will wait for the South to submit the result first. So when Bayelsa submits his own population of 9.5, I think the smallest state in the north is probably, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bauchi or Gombe. Yeah, or Jigawa. Those three states, the smallest out of them, I think it should be either Gombe or Jigawa. They will go and say, okay, since Bayelsa can say its population is 9.5, well, we are what? We are 13 million. And before you know it, our population will just surge. When everybody is done inflating, we might have 500 million people living in Nigeria. So I think I agree with what Tinubu wants to do. Let us really know who has more population in their territory. If the South has more population than the North, we will know. As of today, I know that the southern Nigeria has more population than the North. Because there's no way, there's nowhere. It beats every logic for you to tell me that the North has more population than the South. It is impossible, because the North has not been peaceful for over a period of 9 years or more. And most Northerners have migrated down to the South. Most of them have moved to the Middle Belt. And you could see that the Southwest population alone has quadrupled in a space of 8 years. If you go to Lagos, go to Ogun State, go to Oyo State, you see the high level of Northerners, doing the bike, riding bicycle, riding motorcycles, doing farming, doing security guards, doing all these under the table jobs. And sometimes when you ask them, you guys used to be farmer in the north, what is going on? They'll tell you, well, my land got invaded by bandits. So we cannot have a census that will now still tell us that a state that we know that we all agree is under the siege of terrorists, we will have more population. And they have seen the fact that this, what Tinubu wants to do is to just expose them, expose them. And they are now trying to push an agenda that no, we should have a state-controlled population census so that they can do all their shenanigans, so that they can push their agendas, which of course will not fly. Because we stand with having a census that is coordinated, that is organized by the federal government, and so shall it be.